Disorganization makes us crazy. You can't find your keys. You reorder something you already own. Your closets are stuffed with who knows what, right? Suddenly, you're more like Pigpen from Charlie Brown, for those of you who know Charlie Brown, other than Marie Kondo, right? Sounds familiar? Well, hello, everyone. I'm Sharri Harmel, and welcome to the Next Chapter podcast, where we unapologetically redefine midlife and beyond. And remember, your next chapter might actually be your best chapter. How cool is that? Had to check my microphone, sorry. We all dream of opening drawers to neatly folded clothes or walking into rooms where everything has its place. That's why Marie Kondo has become a household name. But here's the truth. Most of us don't live like that. Life is messy, and sometimes so are our homes. Why does disorganization happen, though, especially in midlife? And I find it happens much more often in midlife. Well, number one might be that you've moved to a smaller space, but you brought all the stuff from the big house with you. When I moved back to Boston after 3 years in Minneapolis during COVID, I went from a 4,000 square foot house to a 1,000 square foot apartment. Those were the days when I went back and forth between Boston and Paris. And so consequently, my apartment in Boston was especially small. And when the movers left, it was floor to ceiling boxes. I am not kidding. Overwhelming was an understatement. So you might have all of those things from your big house that you've now brought to your smaller space, if we want to call it that. Another reason we see disorganization in midlife is that you inherited things from family members who have passed. You've got loads of things like multiple sets of china or porcelain, whatever you might call it, framed photos of people you can't even remember who they are. I have a number of those. The knickknacks or the tchotchkes that you grew up with, they're valuable to you, but they don't fit with your decor. Or space for clothes. Some people save all their clothes through the years. My mother did. And she must have had, oh my gosh, a minimum of 8 closets that were absolutely stuffed full of beautiful clothing, most of it no longer in style. So if you're in America, it might be your basement or garage that's filled up. In France, it might be your cave, as we called it. In England, it might be your your cellar or your attic. All of it filled to the brim with stuff. Another reason disorganization tends to happen in that midlife time period is overload. You're balancing so much and so many people. So organizing falls really to the bottom of the list. Another reason is you have empty rooms. Maybe you've got old children's bedrooms or unused dining rooms, whatever it might be, and they've become dumping grounds for stuff. Another might be that you have clothing in your closets, this is me, for your someday weight. For those of us who have changed weight over the years, we have clothing, we're waiting for the weight that we hope to be again, and therefore those clothes might fit then. We don't have the courage to say, you know what, even if I lose the weight, I don't want to wear that. So let's talk about the costs of being disorganized. It's not just about the stuff. Disorganization takes a toll. Disorganization fuels negative self-talk. It truly does. My daughter struggles with disorganization. And when she's late for an appointment or she misses something or she can't find the needed paperwork, something critical like her phone, she, like many of you, gets mad at herself and starts to engage in negative self-talk. You might even yell at yourself, why can't I get organized? I must be stupid, a loser, or even worse. At my age, we might start to question whether it's the beginning of dementia, right? We've all been there. It sort of builds on itself. Negative self-talk, though, is especially hard because what it does is it tells us, you know, true or not true, that we have no control over any of this. It's just our destiny, which isn't true. Another negative of disorganization is that it bleeds into our thinking. Disorganized behavior often leads to disorganized thinking, which leads to struggles to make plans or to stay consistent with routines. In a prior YouTube video, I talked about how our routines are both our comfort as well as our compass. And so when we don't have positive routines, it can actually mess with our entire compass or system of what do we want to do. Rushing around to activities, and we might become frustrated if anyone or anything slows us down in the process. I think that's why a lot of the road rage happens. I think people are rushing. Everyone's rushing. Why are they rushing? I think it's because we're disorganized. And that all circles back to negative thinking, right? Which only makes matters worse. Another negative effect of disorganization is that it's a huge time waster. If we're disorganized, we waste time looking for things. We are looking for things all over the place. And then we're late to appointments, we miss appointments, we have to spend time apologizing or rescheduling what it was that we missed. And in all that rushing, we are also preoccupied and not calmly thinking about our day's activities or kind of life in general, if that makes any sense. Disorganization can also spiral into catastrophic thinking. Again, I see this with my daughter when she is caught up with in kind of what I call a disorganization spiral. She'll go from, I can't find what I need, or all the way to, if I can't find it, if I don't find it, something bad is going to happen. There might also be kind of that thought process that nothing goes well in my life. Throws up your hands, you throw up your hands because you can't find something and you say, I'm destined to always be overwhelmed and stressed out. Not true. But those are some of the feelings that we have and some of the consequences that we will have from disorganization. Okay, so we know why it might be happening. We know what the consequences are. What do we do about it, right? I'm going to give you some of my tips. And I say this because my ex-husband and my daughter have both told me, even recently, that I'm probably one of the most organized people they know, which is a compliment. I take it as a compliment. So I'm going to share some of those things with you. Get yourself a small notebook. I don't have it in front of me here, but I carry a small notebook in my purse all the time. And in that notebook goes things that I need to remember. It might be thoughts, but it's primarily things I need to remember, like don't forget to do this, or I'm in a doctor's appointment and somebody went down the whole prep of something that I'm going to be going through and I need to think about it. And you know how you sit there and hear someone saying something and you think you'll remember everything, and then you get to your car and you drive home, or you get on the T in my case and you travel home, you've forgotten half of it. So bring a little notebook with you and write in it all the time. It will make all the difference in the world. It might be just ideas that you have for groceries that you need to buy, or something you want to make and bring to a particular party. Write it down. Another is a paper calendar. And I'm showing you the one that I use all the time. This is Moleskine, and this was their 24-25 edition. I usually get only at 1 year at a time. Moleskine also makes a paper calendar that is connected to a digital calendar. And they're expensive. I haven't gone that route yet. Digital calendars are great, wonderful. And if all you carry is your phone, it's something you have to resort to. But digital calendars are not as helpful as paper calendars. And I'll say that because here's an example of a page in my book, my Moleskin, and you can see things to do over here. This is the schedule, and then these are things that I'm jotting down. You can't do that in a digital calendar. In a digital calendar, you can only put in what is actually scheduled. Now, I keep both, just so you know, because sometimes I'm out and about and I have to look at my digital calendar to schedule something, but I do not actively use it. The other thing that I have started doing, which I love, and I'm going to show you this, and that is I'm creating these little boxes. You can see all my podcast notes here, my little boxes over on the left side. And my little boxes are appointments or things I absolutely need to do today. And when I've done them, I put a check in the box. And if I want to bring it to the next day because I haven't checked the box or some time period in the future, that helps me. At the crux of all of this is you find the organizational strategies that work for you. Okay? Because what works for me may not work for you, but you have to find a strategy that helps you to stay organized. And that might take some structure. I mentioned Moleskin, which is my calendar. My daughter uses At a Glance, which is kind of the same sort of system, but it's lighter and it's easier for her to carry it in her purse because she has a lot of children. Now, from a business standpoint, I'll show you what a mess it is, but I use a big monthly At a Glance, and I use this to basically schedule my podcasts because my podcasts, as you all know, come out every Monday. And so consequently, I schedule what number is that podcast and what is the topic of the podcast. And then recently, as you all know, I have just started Substack. And so now my Substack posts are over here on the Thursday side. I need this big calendar, and I use it primarily for business to see the larger picture. The smaller calendar, you've got a week at a glance, but that doesn't help you to schedule something in a larger context. You can also see I use some colors in this. The colors help me to know where I am. And so my colors are about traveling. And in my moleskin, just so you know, here over on the side, I've got the green, which says Boston. And in October, I'm doing this incredible trip to Poland. And you can see I've got Poland over here. So I use highlighters only for the purpose of where am I? Where am I going? And what am I doing that takes me away from my home? I do not use various colors for the actual appointments themselves. There was a gal I worked with at MIT who was so meticulous. She used different colored pens for different types of activities. I'm not that organized. I'm not that meticulous or detail oriented. And so consequently, I only use highlighters for location. So, because I have to know where I am when I'm in a certain place. Okay, so what to do about disorganization? Number one is the notebook. Number two is to carry the paper calendar with you all the time. Number three, projects. Start small. So if you have, say, a home that you need to organize or you've just moved, start with one room. And if you want to really organize and start to clear out, again, start with one room and begin with the room that you use the most, like your living room or your kitchen or your bedroom. For me, it's my living room. And I've been like a chronic mover. So I have had to set up my home in lots of different places. And I always have to make sure my living room is set up because for me, my living room is also my workspace. It's where I write. It's, obviously that's where I eat. It's also where I read, and it's my entertainment space. And so my living room typically has to be pretty much top on the list. Whatever room you choose, though, I want you to ask, how do I actually live there? So if you're moving to a new space, and I'm saying this from a design perspective, we can all sit down and figure out, how big is that room and what furniture is going to go in that room and how am I going to organize my furniture. And it works beautifully on paper. Honestly, though, you have to live in a space to see what works for you. For instance, the table I'm at right now is my dining table, actually. And most people would put my dining table over in the corner because that makes the most sense spatially and it might be even prettiest. But I write at my dining table. I love to work at my dining table, and I'm looking outside at the Charles River. And I need that kind of light and that kind of energy to help me to write. Where sitting in a corner, actually have a kitchen eating area that is nice and cozy. It's a banquette. I never write there ever. I can't be any more inspired in that little nook than I could be in a bathroom. You want to know the truth. But that's me. That may not be you. So you've got to live in a space in order to decide or to really see what works for you. Also, think about the things you must have. I'm a reader, and so consequently, and I don't like overhead lights. And so I always need an extremely comfortable reading chair with really good lamps or a really good lamp. And I'm a coffee drinker. So I need a little table next to me where I can put a coffee cup, a teacup, and my pencils or, writing things, whatever it might be. So you got to live in your space and then you'll know exactly what you need. And remember, functionality is as important, if not more important than beauty. Absolutely. Next, number 4, consider repurposing a room. Don't let unused spaces become storage units. As we age, we have maybe different uses for rooms. It might be an adult child's bedroom. There's no reason to save all that stuff, honestly. Why not turn that into a creative space? What else could it be? A little writing nook. It could be a den, whatever it might be. Typically they're not coming back. So make use of that space. And who needs guest rooms? I've lived in apartments now for over 10 years. I can count probably two hands at the most as to in 10 years how many times someone has slept at my house. And you can do two things. Number one, get a sofa or a love seat, which I have now in my guest room, that is a pullout and actually becomes a bed. I had a Murphy bed in one office that was a twin bed, actually. And what I did is I gave my guest my master bedroom, and I went into my office and slept on the twin bed, which was perfect. Some people, you might be able to make do sleeping on the sofa. It depends how often people actually come to your house. But a guest room, a dedicated guest room, is in many ways really a waste of space unless you've got a massive home. And the apartment that I just moved into, I moved in last fall in Boston, believe it or not, and you'll see it in the Boston tour. You can actually see it in the old videos, the videos of probably a couple of months ago when I was showing you the design process of my Boston apartment. But anyways, it has a formal dining room, which is crazy to me. Here I am, a single woman. What do I need a formal dining room for when space is, such a premium? So I turned my formal dining room here into an office den. It's primarily a den. So I'm going to show you something later, or in just a few minutes, I should say, but I have a desk in my den that I use to write or whatever work I'm working on, admin as I call it. But then I put an armoire, my French armoire, in the second bedroom, and that is my storage unit for all of my office stuff because I don't know about you, but I have kind of a stationary fetish. I love it. Addiction, I guess we would say. So, anyways, let's take a look at that. Okay, this is, I guess, what you officially call my guest bedroom. You will see the full video in a couple of weeks when I show you the completion of my apartment. I don't use it as a guest bedroom because I don't have guests that often that sleep here, but this is a closet, and this houses the washer and dryer. And so consequently, sometimes this is a laundry room. But this is an example of repurposing furniture because this armoire came from Paris. And I went to the flea market and purchased this. Now, in Paris, it was actually used as my TV stand. I had a television, some of these shelves taken out, and I had a television in the back, which is amazing because I never watched television. But anyways, I got it here, thank heavens, and it now houses all of my office supplies, I guess you want to call it, or some of my the things I like to keep. So because I travel a lot, I have different boxes for different cities. You can see this is USA, UK, this is my sewing box, and this is Paris, which is overflowing. France and Europe are over here, but you can see my extra notebooks, files, hanging files, all of that. And then down below, I have a container full of envelopes. Here's some old photos. These are my art markers and cards. We all have extra cards we keep around. And you see down there a whole basket full of tape. So this is a good example of repurposing a piece of furniture for an entirely different usage, if you want to call it that. And you'll see more about this room. I'm sure some of you are wondering about the wallpaper. You will see more about this room when I show you the full redo of my Boston apartment. I hope you enjoyed that. It just goes to show that we can repurpose furniture just as we repurpose rooms. Anyway, so the other thing next on the list, and this is what can we do about disorganization, is you need a place for everything. And sometimes you have to get very creative about how you store things. But I have to say, the most important ingredient to being organized is to have a place for everything. I talk about this to my daughter all the time about her children, that if we can just teach children to put things back where they found them, life would be so much easier. So one of the tips that I use for keys, like household keys, is I have a silver bowl. I have a silver bowl in every one of my homes whenever I've had more than one home. And so in Paris, I had a silver bowl right by the front door. And in that bowl are all my keys. And so consequently, what I do is when I walk in the door and I lock the door, I put the key in the bowl. And that's something I've just always done because it helps me to always know exactly where my keys are. Okay. Now, I mentioned that I turned the formal dining room into a den, and I showed you my armoire, which has all of the office supplies and papers and pens and all those things that we might have in our office are actually stored in my armoire. So I'm going to show you my longer term file cabinets in a few minutes, but in the short term on my desk sits one of these, and you can buy them anywhere. And it is basically just a current active file group that I actually access all the time. My daughter's current, my face fitness things, my assistant, some upcoming events, the Chestnuts, the Vincent Club, that sort of thing, business expenses. Those are the current files I'm working with. And I always keep that on my desk so that I can access those things that I need. Now that I think about it, I'm going to show you the file cabinet that I have in my bedroom, which is absolutely brilliant. It's something I came up with. I don't know. I had a carpenter build them for me over 10 years ago, and I don't even know where I got the idea, but they are wonderful. So let's go take a look at those.
Okay, I think these are the most brilliant thing I have ever created. And see if I can get it so you can see it all. It looks like they were originally made as china cabinets, okay? But now they're my wardrobe. And so above, this particular one's got sweaters, okay? They used to have mirrors, and I had this put on, and then when I made that for clothing, I had to hide things, and so I put the fabric up. Okay, so I'll move this, but underneath, this is the brilliant part. Now, you can use these as shelves, or you can use them as file cabinets. And this makes all the difference in the world because I don't have to have file cabinets in my home because I really don't have any space for them. What's cool about them is this all comes apart, and therefore I can take these little pieces out and they can become drawers if in fact I want sweater drawers down below because I no longer have file cabinets. So I thought that was so cool. I had to share. The drawers are just, they were used for china at one point, and now they're financial documents or jewelry. Very fun. So hope you enjoyed that. And now I'm going to show you my toolbox. This is a very old trunk that I bought in Paris. Oh gosh, I probably bought it in Paris maybe 10 years ago. And if you see really close, it says Bon Marché. And I don't know, and please weigh in on this. I don't know if people bought these trunks for fun and they packed them up and that's how they moved their clothing, or if they bought their trunks to take the items that they had purchased out. I have no idea, but they're all over. And here's the inside of the trunk, and you can see underneath here are all my tools and batteries and extension cords and all of that. It gets very heavy, so the trunk never moves, but it's fantastic. And it allows me to access things when I need them, because honestly, I'm not needing a screwdriver all that often, or even an extension cord. So anyways, that's repurposing a piece of, I guess you'd call it furniture, something like that.
Like I said, total brilliance, right? Okay, next on how do you deal with disorganization? Chunk your projects. Don't overwhelm yourself. And you might say, Sharri, what do you mean chunking a project? For instance, when I moved, I combined three places. I combined my Boston apartment, my Paris apartment, and two storage units. I had loads of paintings, photos, things that needed to be framed. Oh gosh, a china. I cannot tell you how many china sets I had. But I started to put things in piles in corners of my living room. And truly, if you saw my living room right now, you would see a pile of paintings that are all framed now and need to be hung. And you would see a whole bunch of lampshades that I no longer need or that are old and need to be given away. So I chunk things around. Doing everything all at once, honestly, can be overwhelming. And thinking, I'm going to get my living room perfect. I'm using my living room because when I talked about choosing the room that you are in the most often, that you use the most often, you want to start with just the basics and then start to chunk the additional projects. If you work on that kitchen or you work on that living room until that living room is absolutely perfect, you will probably not get finished. So you have to make it livable first and then start to chunk the different projects so that you can move on to other areas of your home if you need to. Another example is, how do I want to say it? Like clothing. Okay. So if you inherit a bunch of clothing, or you inherit maybe your mother's clothing, or you've inherited multiple china sets or whatever, start, like I said, chunk it. So you're going to put it into categories. I think I'm making sense. You're going to put it in categories, and then within those categories, you're going to actually split it up even more. So as you go through, say, your mother's clothing, and for instance, I mentioned my mother's clothing was probably in 8 different closets. So immediately there had to be 3 piles, and the piles were, keep something that was very special to me. Another pile might be to give it away. Another pile might be to throw it away. There you are. But one of the things that you have to do in order to stay organized is to book in that project like it's a doctor's appointment. So, as an example, from 1 to 3 each day for 3 days, maybe next week, from 1 o'clock until 3 o'clock, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday of next week, I'm going to work on my mother's clothing. I'm just using that as an example. So, you hold that time as though it was a doctor's appointment. It's sacred because that's the only way you're going to get through it. And I'm telling you, you will start to feel so good about it as you move through it. When you schedule it in and you know exactly what you're going to do. So in your calendar, you're going to put your time period, you're going to put a little box, and you're going to put on the right side maybe what it is that you're going to be working on. Get as specific as possible, because if you don't, what happens is we get distracted. And it's really easy to get distracted. So the more specific you are, and the more consistent you are, you'll actually get further along than you would if you thought, oh my God, I got to do this over a weekend, or I have to do this over 3 solid weeks, or whatever the case may be. You will feel great as you accomplish those small scheduled chunks of tasks. Now, one of the things that I did want to share with you, so in summary, we talked about the negatives of disorganization. We talked about why disorganization seems to happen more in midlife. And we talked about some of the ideas I have for you. And those ideas, just to review, are making sure, number one, that or you've got some of those great tools. You've got the small notebook, you've got the day timer, you've got a large calendar if you need it. Number two, you're going to start small. You're going to pick one room, one area, one project. And 3, you're going to think about repurposing rooms. What could they be that suits my life the way I am now, how I live now? And number 4, you're going to have a place for everything. Everything has a place to go. And then number 5 is you're going to chunk your projects so that you don't overwhelm yourself. Next, I wanted to share with you some of my tools, because people always ask, what do you use, Sharri? How do you stay focused? So anyways, I'm going to first share with you, I talked about the Moleskine, my Moleskine calendars. At a Glance, it's called At a Glance. They make great calendars too. I used those for years. But in addition to that, I use boxes. And this is a company called Harrison Jones. It's a British company. They've gotten very expensive, but I love these. And you can find them even on Amazon, believe it or not. I love these because you can store all kinds of things inside, and you can say what they are. So I'm going to change my labels because I want my labels to go the other direction, because I want my boxes to stack this way. But I use them for design. So this is the design in different houses. I have samples of fabrics and wallpapers and all that sort of thing. Okay, and my friend Valerie was laughing at me the other day because she said, I don't know anyone that uses pencils anymore. As you can see, I use pencils. I use pencils in my date timer. I actually use pencils a lot, but especially in my calendar, because that allows me to be able to erase and move on. And of course, I have favorite pencils. My pencils are the Blackwing pencils. You can buy them on Amazon. You can buy them directly from the Blackwing company. I like the white ones. I do not like the gray ones. Artists use these. They're beautiful pencils, but you can use any kind of pencil. Just make sure you've got erasers because you will erase more than you will pencil, if that makes any sense. What else? Oh, I talked about the files and file cabinets. So, which you saw, that is extremely important to me. And notebooks. Find notebooks that make you happy. I have notebooks for different things, and I'll show you in just a second. Okay, we talked about notebooks. Number one, I use Moleskines notebooks for my journal. And I obviously am a Moleskine fan. But I use other ones too because I love notebooks. There's a company, Midi, that makes these travel notebooks. And these are great little notebooks. I love them because they have all these beautiful, I've talked about these before, but they have little drawings, watercolor drawings inside of them. As you can tell, because I go to Paris a lot and I go to London a lot. So I just write the date. And every time I go to London or every time I go to Paris in those given years, I just add to my notebook. And so basically, what you end up with is a travel journal, really a view as to what your mindset was like when you went to that particular city or that particular place in that particular year. I love them. And they make a lot of cities. I think they make a New York. I think there's a Vienna, and some that I'm not even remembering at the moment. But this is a very fun little notebook to have. The other notebook I use, and I've talked about this when I've done the Bon Marché videos, is this company, and it's Fabriano, which is one of the oldest stationery companies I think left in the world. It's Italian. And because I spent so much time in Paris, I got used to this size of paper. And I love these notebooks. I don't know why, but I do. I love them. And I always have one for like house things. I also usually have one for life things that I'm working on. These are, as you can tell from this one is so beat up. These are working notebooks. You can tell water spilled on it, you name it. So here I'm just dreaming as an example, my ebook course on decorating, and I'm making little notes. Watch Anna's course to get ideas and very fun. So notebooks are my savior because once you get stuff, thoughts, things you're thinking about, ideas, dreams, whatever, out of here and into something like a notebook, and you can use whatever, flips your skirt, as they say down south, or makes your heart sing. It helps because that's how you start to organize your thoughts. And that's why notebooks are so incredibly valuable. So, if you've been beating yourself up for being a disorganized mess, I want you to take a breath. This is not about perfection. And truly, there are times you would come into my house, even as the woman who her ex-husband said is the most organized person he knows. You would walk into my house and go, "Oh my God, Sharri, this is a disorganized mess." You have to be kind to yourself because it's not about perfection. It's about creating spaces that serves the life that you live right now, not the life you used to have, but the life you live now. So start small, create a home that works for you, and I promise you, you will feel calmer, you will feel clearer and more in control. And all of that will come from you know where things are. You know how to get the things that you need. You know how to put things back. So thank you so much for spending this time with me. And if you found any inspiration today, be sure to like and subscribe. That matters so much to YouTube. And that tells YouTube that they should push this video out to more people who are like us, are interested in some of the same things we're interested in. Now, if you have some great organizational tools or processes, do share because we love getting ideas from each other. I always say there are no original thoughts, no original ideas. We've seen something somewhere or heard about it from somewhere. So do share. And if you want to go deeper, on conversations like this, please join my Substack group. It's free. And it can be sometimes an entirely different group of people. So that can be fun too, because you get even more ideas. Remember, we can make our next chapters one of our best chapters. Let's do it together. Take care, everyone. And as we say in Paris, à bientôt.